Hey, Margaret.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Well,
Hello. Hi, Sally.
Hey, how are you?
Good evening, everybody.
Good
Good
evening.
Hi, Sally, Margaret, and people I don't know.
See.
Hello.
Hey, Jenny.
Hi, Margaret. I'm glad you're able to make it. Welcome. Welcome, Sally.
thank you. Thanks, Jenny. Thanks for having me. It's great to see you all.
Good to see you, too.
Mark, you're sideways.
Hey, Mark, you're falling off the edge.
Yeah, Mark, you're upside down.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Oh,
Linda, glad you could join us.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Got a weird message from my computer that said my audio wasn't working.
There's some feedback happening.
Yeah, Ken just ran into the other room. We're going to fix it. Because of the way the voting thing works, we have to both be on at the same time.
We do have a quorum, right?
Yep, results from our last endorsement meeting. We have endorsed Leah Melman for Sunnyvale City Council, J.R. Fruin for Cupertino City Council, Sergio Lopez for Campbell City Council, Jonathan Weinberg for Los Altos City Council, and David Cohen for San Jose City Council District 4. We did not have an endorsement in the Sunnyvale mayor's race. The vote was split evenly, and we do require a 60% majority for endorsement. I'm going to go ahead and post the agenda in the chat.
Jenny, you may want to talk about the meeting being recorded.
Thank you, Bernard. Yes, this meeting is recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded, please turn off your video and mute. If you would like to reach out and have anything up to this point be edited out, we will be sure not to share any part of the recording at your request. We do post the recording of the Zoom video on our Facebook page for members who are unable to attend.
So it's going to be 10:89. Please swipe your card from the top. The other way side.
I think we have everybody here for the first time now
Hey,
too.
Jenny.
All right. So we have a very full agenda. How we're doing endorsements this election cycle is we have invited candidates to fill out a questionnaire. So everyone with us tonight who will be speaking has filled out our questionnaire. Answers, their responses have been made available beforehand, but if you'd like to go back and review them, the links in the agenda go directly to each candidate's responses. This is all part of the same alternatively, the different tabs at the bottom, and you can look through each of the candidates' responses that way as well. The format will be a 1-minute opening statement followed by a Q&A. For candidates that have, or for races that have multiple candidates, we'll do an opening statement from each candidate in alphabetical order, and then we'll move on to the Q&A from there. After each race, we will have a Zoom poll. And please note that in a few of the races tonight, there are multiple seats that are open, so you're able to vote for endorsement of yours. And only members in good standing are allowed to vote. So we hope that everybody has renewed their membership. And it requires a 60% majority in order to receive the endorsement of the club. Vinod is going to be our timekeeper tonight. You can see him with the green in the background. That means you are good to go. And it will turn yellow at 30 seconds and red when your time is up. And we will stop you at that point. Are there any questions before we begin? We do encourage everyone to use the chat, so please don't hesitate to use the chat. And when it comes to Q&A, you can raise your hand by clicking the participant button at the bottom of the screen and then the raised hand button. If you're having any trouble, please feel free to unmute yourself and speak up. So first we have the Mountain View City Council race, and we are going to start off with opening statements, first by Margaret A. Koga.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Margaret Abe Koga, and I'm the current mayor for the city of Mountain View, running for re-election. I've had the honor of serving on the Mountain View Council for 12 years, and as mentioned, mayor this year during an unprecedented crisis time. And I've worked really hard with my colleagues, city staff, and our community partners to respond successfully to the needs and concerns of our community during this time. We've initiated the largest rent relief program in the county, a small business resiliency program, opened safe parking lots for vehicle dwellers, and enhanced food, hygiene, and safety assistance for the homeless and low-income families, brought COVID testing in Mountain View, opened our downtown for outdoor dining, and fostered community dialogue around diversity while working to ensure that equitable and inclusive city service delivery. We also just last week received great news that we received a $12 million Project Home Key state grant to build 100+ transitional housing rooms in a transitional housing project for the homeless. And at this time now, we need to work together to build our community. And as mayor, I was mayor in 2009 during the Great Recession, where I led the city out of that crisis. And I believe I have experience, relationships, and know how to get things done and to get us through this crisis as well. So
Margaret, our time is up. We can go for
you.
Q&A. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you, Margaret. Next up, we have Sally Lieber.
Well, thank you so much for having us here, and I am so glad to be before this club. This has always been one of the premier clubs, and the new energy and enthusiasm that it's been infused with over the past year and a half or so is really very, very excited. So thank you so much for having us here. And, you know, I think a lot of people who have known me in years wouldn't know that I actually got my start on city council in Mountain View and served as mayor there before I went on to 3 terms in the state assembly. And I really love Mountain View. However, I feel that we're losing some of our economic and ethnic diversity, and we're losing community participation as people are so hard pressed to make rent and to cope with the things that everyone is going through right now. It's obviously a very unprecedented time for all of us. And I'm eager to work hard to ensure that Mountain View is on the right track. Some of the things that I'm very concerned about are getting it right as far as public safety and the services that we provide to the community, making sure that the housing is there and continues to be there for folks who are renters in Mountain View, including protecting our mobile home parks. And
Ali, we'll have to defer it to Q&A. Yeah.
oh,
Thank you.
okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sally. Sorry, I know the 1 minute is very short. Sorry, next up we have Alex Nunez.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for having me. My name is Alex Nunez. I'm running for Mountain View City Council because I believe I have the skills and the knowledge and experience we need to truly be fighting and looking out for our working families. It is my fundamental belief that government ought to always be thinking, what can we do for the well-being of our residents? And over the last 4 years, I have engaged with our low-income, minority, senior citizen, chronically ill residents here. And I've really found and discovered that for the great majority of them, there's a lot of pressure around their economic health and physical health due to the housing crisis that has only now become more exacerbated through the COVID-19 pandemic. If elected to council, I will be, I think, one of the only millennial representatives. And because we make up the bulk of the human population, I think we need to have representation on the council and in government broadly now sooner than later. So thank you much for your considerations. I look forward to the Q&A.
Thank you, Alex. Next, Pat Showalter.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. Times are uncertain, so we need to elect leaders that we can count on. I've been an active resident of Mountain View for 36 years. I've volunteered on the all the way through school with my kids, and served on the Planning Commission for 9 years and on council for 4 years. I'm known for championing housing and the environment and for treating people with respect. I'm proud of our accomplishments on City Council. We built 2,500 new housing units and 300 of them were affordable. We opened 3 parks. We added substantially to our bike infrastructure. And we raised the minimum wage along with Sunnyvale. Thanks. By profession, I'm a civil engineer. So my background applies directly to the land use and sustainability and infrastructure decisions that come before council all the time. Through my government service, I've learned how to get things accomplished both regionally and locally. Since leaving council, I've continued to advocate for affordable housing and the environment. I serve on the board of Alta Housing and on the San Francisco Bay Conservation and Development Commission.
Pat, we'll have to defer for questions. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And finally, we have Lenny Siegel. Is Lenny on the line? So I don't think Lenny is here with us tonight, so we can go ahead and move on to the Q&A portion. I see Rob Means. Has he signed up?
Yes. My understanding is that Mountain View has been considering getting a connection between the Caltrain station and the new industrial area on the bay side of 101 on the east side, where I think they've got Google and a number of other large corporations and potentially some housing, I understand. And the personal rapid transit technology, I think, was in the mix of considerations for making that leap, that connection. And I was wondering what the candidates thought about the PRT project, that technology, and because from the outside, it kind of looks like some foot dragging is going on. That's all. Pass.
Okay, let's start with Margaret for a response.
Thank you. Yes, so we have been studying new technologies, and under the guise of automated guideway transit, we have been looking at how to connect the site, especially the transit center, to the North Bay Shore area where many of our tech companies are, and plans for housing. My initial thought was that the feasibility study came out to say that it could cost up to about $500 million for the system. And they're actually, I'm on the VTA Policy Advisory Committee, and there's discussion about light rail and whether to repurpose light rail tracks, just the future of light rail. And so that's the idea that I've been trying to explore, is maybe we can repurpose the tracks to get a PRT or a AGT type of system, and use those tracks to get us over to the other side. So we definitely need a partnership with VTA and other regional agencies to be able to, frankly, make this a feasible project. So that's what I'd like to look at moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Sally.
I think that's a really good question coming from Rob. That's something that needs to happen, figuring out how to stitch together those two very important parts of the city, and hopefully have more people using Caltrain in the future. And we need Measure RR to pass for sure. I do think that as we potentially seek federal funding for a solution like that, we don't make a really sympathetic case for other states who may be getting just the bare bones of public transit. And so we'd have to look at what's the right mix there. But I think you're on the right track as identifying that as a priority, and also cross-bay transit to get to the employment centers of North Bay Shore as well.
Thank you, Sally. Alex.
Yeah, so that project that Rob just mentioned really kind of had its, at least first origin of promise from the Measure P business tax that was put before voters in November of 2018. I served as one of the co-leads for the campaign, which was one of the most successful, passed with 70% of voter support. And really what this money is doing, it's raising $6 million a year specifically to fund innovative transit solutions. And as we accrue this money and look to bond against it in the possible future, and I say possible, then we really have to consider what specific projects we're going to want to actually look at. For me personally, I know that the council recently approved dispersing some of that money to shuttle service. I guess that's fine for the interim, but we really want to be looking at truly innovative projects. To Mayor Abekoga's point, whether that is some automated guide rails, there's a lot of problems with that, and they're very expensive, hard to change tracks, largely unused in the United States for various reasons. But that doesn't mean that we can't use other forms of either dedicated infrastructure or automated vehicles. So if elected to council, I definitely would want to make sure we accrue our money for innovative transit solutions. Exactly which ones they are yet, I'm not sure, but definitely not shuttle service. So I think that's the foot dragging that you're experiencing, Rob.
Thank you, Alex. Next, let's hear from Pat.
Yeah, I think that when you talk about innovative solutions and how innovative solutions are changing, that was really what created the problem. We heard from a lot of transportation experts, and they said that there's a tremendous amount of change and development going on, and that the systems that are available now could be very different than what is available in 5 years. So we were sort of advised to go with a elevated roadway that almost anything could go on. The real important thing that we need to do is to identify that route and then identify the right-of-way that's needed. The route will be elevated, but you still have to have stanchions from place to place to hold it up. So we need to ID where those are and make sure that we protect them so that it could go forward in the future.
Thank you, Pat. And I see Lenny has now joined us, Lenny Siegel. How about if you could answer Rob's question? Did you hear him?
I caught part of it. I think I know what it's about. So basically, Pat's basically right. I originally proposed a monorail between downtown Mountain View and North Bay Shore, but the technologies are changing so fast. We may have automated small vehicles that could stay on an elevated guideway and then get off and go to specific businesses. But the important thing is to have flexibility in propulsion and size of vehicles. And so an elevated guideway is for the main route between downtown Mountain View and North Bay Shore is what the experts found when they did their studies. We never took personal rapid transit too seriously for North Bay Shore because our employers really encourage bicycling. And so people get around within North Bay Shore on bicycles. And so we didn't see as much of a need for personal rapid transit as you might see elsewhere.
Okay, thank you, Lenny. And since we had done opening statements prior to you joining the call, would you like to take a minute to introduce yourself and your campaign?
Well, I'm Lenny Siegel. I was on the council from 2015 to 2018. I was mayor in 2018. I've been a champion of building more housing and of housing justice. That our community's vitality, both economic and our economic vitality and our cultural and socioeconomic diversity has been threatened by the housing crisis. So I was elected along with Pat in 2014 to build more housing. We passed the North Bay Shore Precise Plan in the end of 2017. There's some progress, but the council hasn't moved forward as much as I'd like. And the other thing, of course, is housing justice, where we're seeing people displaced by demolitions, by rising rents. This is before COVID-19, and they're going to go up again. And we're going to see a lot of evictions when the COVID-19 bills come due. So I've been working with, and the other thing, of course, is the vehicle residents, people who can't afford their rent, forced to live on the streets, and the incumbents on the council majority is trying to throw them out of town. And I led the referendum drive to put that on the ballot because I believe that Mountain View's strength is in its socioeconomic and cultural diversity.
Thank you, Lenny. We're out of time.
And you can see Vinod there, he's our timekeeper. So when it goes red, that means stop.
Okay, I didn't know how much time I had, but I think I did. So.
Great. Jenny Bradnini?
Yes, I have a question. As we all know, there's been a big groundswelling when calls to divest the police, defund the police, reimagine the policing. And I know, like many other city councils, there was long discussions on it, but Mountain View City Council held firm and passed the $44 million budget. I'm wondering what each of you thinks about reimagining the police force, defunding the police, and how you would go about it, or what are good ideas, or what you disagree about moving forward.
Okay, and for response, let's reverse the order and go back to Lenny.
I think you'll find a remarkable amount of agreement amongst the candidates, at least what I've heard in forums so far. We need to find a way for people other than armed and uniformed people to knock on the doors of vehicle residents to respond to mental health emergencies. I don't know you call that defunding the police, but it's transferring their responsibilities to people who are better trained for those specific jobs. We also need to figure out why we have the disproportionate stopping and arresting of Black and brown people. That is a serious problem. It's been going on for a while, but we don't know whether the problem is implicit bias or whether it's socioeconomic. So that's something we have to address. And finally, we need a way for people to come forward with complaints. We don't hear a lot of complaints, but maybe that's because we don't create a good forum for people to make them. Oh, and in terms of the budget, I actually believe that Mountain View does well by paying its police officers well. We have a more professional and a more educated police force because of that. So while we do need reform, the immediate thing is not just slash the budget.
Thank you, Lenny. Next we have Pat.
Yeah, Lenny's right. I think there is a lot of agreement on this one. We really have a good police force, but it's far from perfect. And as Lenny mentioned, there is this disparity between the statistics on who is arrested and who is stopped for traffic stops and our community. And we need to get to the bottom of that and figure it out. I think one of the things that in the end we'll wind up needing is a citizens advisory group whose job it is to work with the police and oversee issues and bring those issues to the city council as needed. We don't have that right now, and it means that we don't have a place for people to go with complaints. The other thing I think is that this is really a complicated thing. It's outside of the area of expertise of most people on the council. So I think eventually, hopefully not too long, maybe 6 months or a year, we're going to need to hire some outside experts who really know, who can really help us evaluate our police and move forward. So I think that the steps that the City Council has taken to date to establish the Race and Equity Committee are really great steps in the right direction. But right now I think of them as necessary but not sufficient. We've got a lot of work to do.
All right, next let's hear from Alex.
Yeah, so with regards to policing, there's quite a few issues there. I think the fundamental issue that I really believe is a misplacing of the discussion is not whether or not the Mountain View Police is a quote unquote good or bad police department, because it is. It is within the broader context of American policing over the last 40 and 50 years and beyond that has disproportionately targeted people of color. So truly it is the foundation of policing that is the issue. And there is no police department which is outstanding from that. I believe that because we're one of the good police departments, it is an even greater responsibility for us to establish models of policing that can be exported to other cities around the country as that model. I think the way that we need to do this is we need to make sure that we are bringing together a community-led process whereby we can select a broad representation of citizens and residents from our city that they can work, in fact, within outside legal counsel that the city hires, and that they actually work within the city sanctioned process to make official recommendations to the city council that then get voted on. This needs to be quantitative and it needs to be qualitative. It does need to look at the budget. It does need to look at the accountability policies as well. Because currently right now, the police policies are sourced from a third party called Lexipol. And while we are one of a good police departments, we share a lot of our policing policies with cities like Winslow, Arizona, where sheriffs recently got away with shooting a 5-foot-tall Navajo woman who was stealing a couple packs of beer, 6 packs of beer from a Circle K. So we need to make sure we're addressing accountability issues and rerouting money. As Lenny said, a lot of us agree that armed guards or armed police officers with deadly weapons should not be responding to people in mental distress or social issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Sally.
I have to disagree 1000% with everything that Alex said. And when he talked about the responsibility that we have as a department that is conscientious and does keep records of contacts with folks, I think we're utterly failing on that. When Dr. Shirley Weber's AB 392 landmark legislation on police use of force went through the state legislature, there were only two to three cities in the Bay Area that took a stand on that bill. And Mountain View, if we're doing so well, then we have to take a leadership role and start to be proactive. We do have a human relations commission that's very active. I think that we need to have regional independent oversight of contacts with police. I don't think it should be tiny city by tiny city. And frankly, when we look at the rent control board in Mountain View, the games that have gone on there and how landlords have been able to drive that process, I really fear what a police oversight board that's just for Mountain View would look like. And I think that the North County cities and Mountain View particularly have to get in the game in terms of juvenile justice and not just leave it all to San Jose. We have to be involved in the jails. We have to be involved in corrections issues, just like we are in other infrastructure issues. And really be proactive, not always be that good follower, but try being a leader.
Thank you, Sally. Margaret?
Thank you. So I like the term reimagining our police department. And when the incidents happened and the civil unrest began in June, the first thing that I did was to appoint a subcommittee of the City Council on race, equity, and inclusion. Because for me, this is personal. I've dealt with racism for all of my life. And I believe that in order for us to really combat systemic racism, we have to look at it holistically. Policing is definitely a big part of it, but racism transcends all different issues, whether it's environmental with air quality, clean air, clean water, and on service delivery and on housing, land use. There's so many issues that it covers, and I would like for us to look at all of that. In terms of policing, what the other candidates have mentioned we should do, we actually are already doing. So we had the police department has broken down their data by race, and we've actually partnered with Stanford. They're helping us to do more research on what that really means. What do those numbers mean? The other issue about community engagement, there are many different models of how to do that, whether it's an oversight board or a community relations board. And so we've been doing the research throughout the country. Again, Stanford is helping us do that. And we expect to get recommendations as we delve into more of the details. We've also done a listening tour because we wanted to hear from the community, their experiences, good and bad, with our police department. We've looked at the national campaigns like 8 Can't Wait, and we're aligning our policies with those campaigns. And in terms of unloading some of the extra responsibilities, especially in the area of mental health, we are looking at different delivery models. I've learned there is a county mobile response team. Unfortunately, there's only 10 people for the entire county. So when North County makes a call, it takes hours for them to come. So we're looking at, well, do we need to set up our own JPA in North County to have that service provided? So these are all issues that are complex, and so it's going to take a little time, but we've already started the work, and we'll be getting reports in October, November, and expect to make some recommendations by the end of the year to the full council. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And we're going to do the last question, keeping the responses to 30 seconds or less, from Javed.
Thank you. We've been faced with horrendous fires, and there's an issue of climate change that's facing us head on. What are you proposing to do to ensure, or as much as you can, that we can take care of managing fires and also get rid of greenhouse gases so we have a cleaner environment?
All right, and let's start with Margaret.
Thank you. So I've had the pleasure actually of working with Javed on the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Board, and through our work the last, I'd say 4 years, we have been able to actually see GHG emission reductions for the first time in our city back in 2018, mainly because of Silicon Valley Clean Energy. And I think we need to continue to move on that track. I led the effort to adopt REACH codes, and we in Mountain View now require all electric new buildings. That wasn't easy to do, frankly, but it's important to do. We have to take these bold steps to combat climate change, and I would like to continue my work in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Sally.
You're muted. Oh.
Sorry, I clicked on it, but it didn't unmute. I think that we need to build on the work that's been done so far in terms of sustainability and the REACH codes and et cetera, and make sure that we're actually implementing, that we have the staffing in place to really move forward in a substantive way with that. I'd also like to see our city take a position on state legislation in terms of the environment and push harder there. I know that our governor just announced that we would have a goal of no gas-powered vehicles by 2035. I think that all the cities that are seeking sustainability should be pushing harder and not just have that be a goal and not by 2035, because we've all breathed in the evidence of what's happening with climate collapse. I do think that there's still a great deal of room for the city to increase its own practices in a sustainable direction, and that's something that I'm very eager to work on.
Thank you, Sally. Alex?
Yeah, so anyone can ask my wife that my worst fear since I was 10 years old has been dying in the middle of a Mad Max desert because there's no water and it's just hot. So, I mean, this is personal. It's personal for all of us. But fundamentally, I look at it, and there's two sides of it, right? One is the mitigation that we can take towards reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And that's really going to be around getting aggressive against, our largest by far source of emissions, which is, yes, definitely gas, from vehicles. There's a lot of issues with the way that we set up our communities, and a lot of it is a legacy from the 50s and 60s where car culture was king. Right now in the south of El Camino, if you forget your gallon of milk, you have to drive all the way back to the north side to basically get that gallon of milk, essentially. And so we need to make sure that we modify our zoning plans to make sure that people have places to go that are convenient and close by, as well as make sure we take density into our own hands, because the state already allows for ADUs and JADUs within single family lots.
Alex, your time is up. Thank you.
Sorry, getting 60 minutes. Yeah.
Thank you, Alex. Pat.
Hi, I serve on the Carbon Free Mountain View board, and we were part of the grassroots effort of fossil-free Silicon Valley that led the REACH code effort all over the county. It was incredibly successful and very excited to see that. We had a sustainability task force a few years ago, and they came forward with some great recommendations that the city is trying to implement. But what I wanted to bring up is the adaptation that we need to do to protect against sea level rise. We are a shoreline city. And so we are subject to sea level rise, and there are some projects that we've identified that need to be done, but we haven't done them yet. So one of the things I will champion is doing those. I'm a civil engineer. I've specialized in water resources management my whole life. So this is something I want to make sure gets taken care of for my community.
Thank you, Pat. And finally, Lenny.
Yeah, the number one source of greenhouse gas emissions from Mountain View is the regional commute. And it's undercounted because the greenhouse gas emissions of drivers and internal combustion engine cars is split between the source community and the employment community. So it's a rather large thing, and the best way to solve that, in addition to improving transit like Caltrain, is to locate housing near jobs. And that's, again, there are other reasons to do that, but that's the number one thing we could do to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. Also makes sense, you mentioned wildfires. We shouldn't be putting people out on the urban-rural interface. We should be building infill development, smart growth, so that people don't have to worry about power shutoffs and fires when in their homes. And I agree with Pat about it.
Lenny, time is up, Lenny. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming out and speaking to us. We are going to go ahead and launch our Zoom poll, which is what we're using for the endorsement vote. The results of the poll won't be announced until after the meeting, because we do need to verify that those who voted are members in good standing. So we will follow up with you after the meeting to let you know what the final results are.
Thank you.
And this is our first time using a Zoom poll for multiple candidates. There are 4 open seats in this race, so you can vote for up to 4 people. So hopefully that works out smoothly here. Jeff's gonna launch the poll. So thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey, Jeff, I love your background there. I just took a screenshot of that, so I've got a copy.
And for anyone on the phone who wants to vote, or anyone else that's having issues seeing the Zoom poll, you can either private message Jeff L. or send an email to Jeff. What do you think the best email is? We'll post it. We'll put in the chat. And if you have any questions, just please follow up with me afterwards. We will not hold any technical issues against anyone for voting. We realize that we have to be flexible in this environment.
One thing you should tell people is that if they vote for more than 4, their ballot is voided.
Yes, please limit your selection to 4. And if you already submitted, again, please send us a note. Okay, and with that, we will close the poll and follow up with the results afterwards. So next on the agenda is the Palo Alto City Council. We have with us Stephen Lee and Greer Stone. So we will again start with a 1-minute opening statement from each candidate and then move to Q&A. Stephen, can you start us off?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen Lee. I'm a progressive Democrat running for Palo Alto City Council. I am one of only 3 candidates in this race of 10 who's been endorsed by the County Democratic Party. I've also been endorsed by 8 Democratic groups throughout our region. And for the past 3 years, I've had the honor and privilege of serving Palo Alto as a Palo Alto Human Relations Commissioner, working to make our community more welcoming, inclusive, and responsive to the needs of all members of our community. I'm running because it's time for bold, progressive, and responsive leadership. And in particular, we really need to get serious about addressing our housing crisis and our 3-to-1 jobs to housing imbalance. For me, housing is so inextricably linked to many of the issues we care about as a community. So if we want to address racial and economic inequality, climate change, homelessness, traffic, reversing declining enrollment in our schools, enabling teachers to actually live in or close to the communities that they teach, or providing housing for teachers or for our firefighters, we need to get serious about housing. I hope to earn your support this evening, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Stephen. Next, we have Greer Stone.
Good evening. My name is Greer Stone, and I'm running because I believe Palo Alto has reached an inflection point. Both the pandemic and the social unrest across the nation, or furtherance of Black Lives Matter, have shown a light on the injustices pervasive across our nation and here at home. This unprecedented crisis has provided us a unique opportunity to have what many commentators have labeled a great reset. A small window of time where we can forego the antiquated systems that cause so many of our persistent problems like affordable housing, traffic, social injustice, and climate change, and instead forge ahead with a future that is diverse and equitable. My campaign will be focused on addressing these many challenges. I believe my experience as a public school teacher, Democratic delegate, attorney, chair of the Midtown Residents Association, and the vice chair of the Santa Clara County Human Rights Commission provide me the kind of experience necessary to tackle these complex issues and help create a better future for us all. I'm endorsed by Senator Jerry Hill, the Sierra Club, Judge Ladorus Cordell, and many others. And I hope to earn the honor of your endorsement. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
All right, thank you. We'll move to the Q&A portion of this. Michelle Dauber.
Thank you. My question is for Greer Stone. Your answers on our questionnaire indicate that you support victims of sexual assault and you will do all you can to see that sexual assault perpetrators are, quote, punished. Yet media reports show that you used your title with the County Human Relations Commission when you spoke in favor of your brother, who is a former Palo Alto Unified Elementary School teacher and convicted child molester, currently serving a 15-year sentence at his sentencing hearing. And I have a concern about this because the transcript of that hearing shows that you stood when you gave your statement just a few feet away from the victim of child sexual abuse and mentioned your county position on the Justice Committee and then characterized your brother, the perpetrator, in glowing terms as having a, quote, nurturing character who is, quote, at heart and soul a caretaker, quote, and that he, maybe this is worst of all, was, quote, a good man. Would you agree that someone who molests a child is not a good man and a nurturing caretaker? And how can women trust you to ensure that sex offenders, particularly teachers in Palo Alto Unified School District who abuse children in our community, are properly held accountable?
Thanks, Michelle, for that question and the opportunity to be able to address that. This is a deeply personal and difficult topic, but I'm happy to address it. I was asked to be a character witness in my brother's trial, and I did so, and I was asked to speak to his character as I knew him. I did so truthfully. I did so under oath, and I was explicitly told, and Michelle, I know you as an attorney kind of know this as well. I was explicitly told by the defense attorney to not mention the victim, to focus on the characteristics of my brother as I knew him, and so I did so truthfully. In relation to your question regarding using my position by mentioning that, I did it purely as a way to be able to, for identification purposes, as well as to be able to provide the context for the answer I was providing, because actually within the statement, I did talk about how I had observed my brother teaching inmates how to read and becoming really a contributing kind of inmate within the jail system. And through my role on the review committee, having toured county jails and spoken with many inmates and going through different reports and everything and making those recommendations to the Board of Supervisor, I felt like that was important information too for the judge to be able to know that I wasn't just basing this off of as a layman, but my opinion was based on my experience in that capacity. And I made that statement in open court. The defense attorney didn't object to it. The district attorney didn't object to it. The judge did not object to it. And county council has reviewed it and found that there was no violation of county policy.
So you're saying that you received a letter from county council telling you that that was fine and there was no violation of county policy?
There was no letter.
So you haven't received a letter telling you that that was fine. Okay. So did you at any point say that you were speaking only in your individual capacity after you used your title? Because there's a county policy that when you use your title, you're supposed to indicate that you're speaking in your individual capacity.
I agree. I did not explicitly state that, but I believe that the context of the statement within the context of my statement kind of made it clear. Just as you know, in trials, all witnesses present information that is helpful for the trier of fact and for the judge to be able to know who it is that, what your role is and to be able to provide proper context. And so that's why I made the statements that I did.
So what you just said was that you used your title so that the judge would know and take into consideration your role on that county commission. And that is exactly what you're not supposed to do, Greer. So I am not persuaded by your answer. I also want to note that you didn't actually, I'm sympathetic to the fact that you care about your brother, but you didn't actually answer my actual question, which is, do you think that calling him a good man is accurate? Do you think someone who molests a child is a good man?
I was speaking to his character as I knew him, and I made my statements under oath.
Actually, what you said was that the parents of his students are here today because they know that he is a good man. I have the transcript.
They agreed with that. Yes.
Yeah, but that's not speaking about you. That's speaking
Move
about
on.
others. Move on.
Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome.
See, Ken, did you have a question, or I could propose one? Okay, I know that there has been
how to unmute himself, and you can go on.
Okay, there has been a lot of effort in Palo Alto to pass a CDA ordinance, and as a city council member, will you ensure that the CDA gender equity ordinance is a high priority? Greer, why don't we start with you for this question?
Yeah, absolutely. It would be one of my high priorities. I'm the former chair of the Palo Alto Human Relations Commission, and as I mentioned in my introduction, I vice chair the Santa Clara County Human Rights Commission. So these type of issues of social justice and equity and inclusion have always been a part of my top concerns, and so this would definitely be one of them if I was elected to City Council.
Thank you. Stephen?
Yes, I would absolutely work on that. I was the one who brought forth CEDA at the Human Relations Commission. I spent dozens of hours working with my colleagues in the commission to persuade them that this was an effort worthwhile. And we ended up unanimously recommending CEDA to our city council nearly 2.5 years ago. And it was one of those situations where our council said one thing publicly, that they supported this initiative. They thought gender equity was an issue worthy of their time, but one where they were saying behind the scenes that it would never see the light of day, that it would never be put back on the council agenda. I think as hopefully a city council member, I'm going to live our values and speak what I believe is truth. And gender equity continues to be an issue everywhere, including at the local level and in Palo Alto. I think given, with the tragic passing of Justice Ginsburg, it's down to all of us to pick up that mantle and to resume the work that she has worked on for so long and get serious about gender equity and bring it back to the agenda.
Yeah,
and
stay at the table and make the argument.
Sorry, was that the end of my time?
No, you still have time.
Okay.
Yeah, you still have a few seconds if you want to say anything else.
Yeah, yes, I absolutely support this initiative. It's one that I've been fighting for the last 3 years, and one that, many of the establishment have not liked the fact that I've been advocating for this issue. And I think it speaks to the need for change on our council and for folks who hold true progressive democratic values and believe that gender equity is an issue here and everywhere else.
All right, thank you, Stephen. We'll take our last question from Rosie.
Hi, candidates. Thank you for being here. So both of you started talking about, making things, and you hear a lot about equity and displacement and rah, but I'd really like to know, what are your plans to alleviate or to provide, future housing or housing now to folks that I know personally who have to go and sleep in Los Baños and come to work in Palo Alto, dragging their children at 3 in the morning so they can go to school in Palo Alto. I mean, it's such a horrific experience. In my years, I've never seen this major economic disparity. And so I'd like to know just specific examples of how you plan to address that.
Okay, Stephen, can you start?
Yeah, definitely. We certainly need to address housing with the 3 Ps. We need to protect tenants, protect housing, and produce additional housing. And a couple of ways that I would like to do that is getting rid of exclusionary zoning, enabling the construction of duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes in traditionally single-family neighborhoods. We also need to look at how do we remove barriers to building dense housing along transit corridors and in job centers. And that means re-examining our height restrictions and our parking requirements. I also want to work with governments and faith-based communities who own real estate in Palo Alto and leverage those land to construct affordable housing. You know, we know that land acquisition cost is a huge cost to building affordable housing. And so anyone who has the land and is interested in developing it for that purpose, we as a city and as a community need to reach out and do the heavy lifting to enable development on those sites, like on church property, like at our Coverly Community Center, like at other properties owned by state and local governments.
Thank you, Stephen. Greer?
Yeah, thanks, Rosie, for that question. I think this is my top priority for certain, and it's one that I experience every day. Both my wife and I are teachers. We rent a small 1-bedroom apartment here in Palo Alto, and we struggle to get by. One of the teachers that I worked with closely last year, a true mentor of mine, moved out of state this past summer because she couldn't afford to be able to live in this community. And we're going to see this problem continue if we cannot get a real grasp on it. The 3 points to my housing strategy is first, focusing on trying to balance the jobs housing imbalance that Palo Alto has. We're well known for having one of the worst jobs housing imbalances in the country. And one of the reasons why we have that is because we have had policies focused on job growth over housing production really since the 1970s. So I would make sure that I would strengthen our city's office cap, require commercial developers to pay more in impact fees so we can put those fees to creating actual affordable housing, also increasing our inclusionary zoning rate. Currently, Palo Alto requires 15% of new housing to be deed restricted for below market rate. I believe Mountain View is around 20%, San Francisco's at 25%. There's room for us to move up. Also, we need to enact the Palmer fix. Same type of thing, inclusionary zoning, but for rental units. We also need to make sure that we're preserving the existing housing that we have. So I would submit a colleague's memo within my first 6 months, a no net loss housing policy that would basically forbid anyone from destroying housing unless they're going to replace it with the same amount or a greater amount of housing. And if they're going to destroy below market rate, we need to have a series of extra protections to make sure that those residents are not being displaced in the meantime. And
Thank
finally,
you, Greer. We are out of time. Thank you.
Not a problem. Just the final point is just investing in affordable housing.
All right, thank you both for coming out. We are going to go ahead and launch the poll. That's all the time we have for this race. We are running a few minutes behind our agenda. So the Zoom poll will be launching. I appreciate those who brought to my attention that you cannot see the poll on mobile devices. If that's the case for you, please send a private chat to Jeff Lemon or to his email, which will be posted in the chat.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
If you're on a mobile device, at the top of your thing, there's a little thing that says poll in progress, and you click on the thing that says poll in progress, and then you'll see the poll.
And so the poll will be open for just 10 more seconds. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next race, which is the El Camino Healthcare. We're gonna start with Megan for opening statements. You have 1 minute.
Hi. Would it be possible to let me in via my computer? I was on my.
Yes.
I should be in the waiting. Okay, perfect. All right.
So let's restart the time.
Sure.
Great. Hi, thank you. Okay. So yeah, my name is Megan Fraley. I am running for El Camino Healthcare District. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I'm a community organizer and activist here in Silicon Valley. I led the campaign, I founded and led the campaign to raise minimum wage throughout our county, leading to a $15, now above $15 minimum wage for 95% of minimum wage workers. I have served on the Northern California ACLU board and would bring that leadership experience. I'm running because we need more mental health expertise. El Camino has actually been on the forefront of making a commitment to mental health, but we currently have no mental health expertise on the healthcare district or hospital board, and I would like to bring that expertise. I'm also running to bring a very deep connection to the community and community organizing and civic work so that we can really make it not just a healthcare district, but a hospital, not just a hospital district, but really reinvigorate the healthcare district aspect of the board. So thank you for having us, and I'm happy to be here with my colleagues.
Thank you, Megan. Next, Julia Elliott Miller.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for the invitation. I've been a long-time member of the club, and you can check my website at juliamiller.net. I'm running for re-election. After 8 years, I've served as chair, vice chair, and currently secretary. I think during COVID-19, that experience and proven leadership is important to stay with the district. I've been a firm supporter of behavioral health and was able to raise $10 million for the foundation, which helped name our 2 new buildings, the Sobrato Integrated Health Building, which provides one-stop shopping on your medical needs for those in the district, and for the Toby Pavilion over the Schreiber Mental Health and Addiction Services Building, which is premier. I would be honored to have your endorsement, and thank you for tonight. And I've been endorsed by the Democratic Central Committee and by Congresswoman Anna Eshoo and Ro Khanna, Jerry Hill, Mark Berman, and all of the wonderful Democrats that your organization supports. So thank you. I can't see the time clock, so.
You're perfectly timed. And if you have trouble, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a grid view that allows you to see multiple people at once, and hopefully you'll be able to see the time, Vinode screen by using that. So as our third candidate, we have Carol Ann Summersall.
Hi, Carol, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me to be considered for endorsement. I am Carol Ann Summersall, and I am running for candidate for El Camino Healthcare District Board Director. I am an independent physician who's run a successful practice based at El Camino Hospital for the past 2 decades. My experiences as an essential healthcare physician, taking care of all the different varied people in our community from all walks of life. My experiences as a quality assurance chair and in peer review, my experiences working at 3 other local hospitals all make me well qualified for this position. In addition, because I am an independent physician, I am not answerable to any outside groups or corporations, and I will work tirelessly to ensure that our healthcare district, our El Camino Healthcare District, is controlled and rooted in the community it serves. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to open it up to questions. I see Michelle.
Hi, let me start the video. So I am interested in your perspectives on sexual violence and whether you would support having rape kit examinations performed at El Camino Hospital. Right now, they are only performed at Valley Med, a small number at Stanford, that's a pilot, and maybe someday we'll get them in Gilroy. Perhaps you know, but Santa Clara County does the rape kits not only for Santa Clara County, but also for Santa Cruz County. So victims have to drive a very, very long distance, sometimes in the back of a police car, in order to get these exams. And I think that that's very traumatizing and would like to know how we can get that to happen at more hospitals.
I'm happy to answer that, Michelle. I've had several, as a victim of domestic violence, I have had several conversations with our CEO, Dan Woods. As you probably know, it requires to have a special staff 24/7. So we are working on that during COVID and having some budget issues. We haven't implemented that yet, but it is certainly on the list of things to do. So excellent question. Thank you very much. And our community benefits are big supporters of the domestic violence programs with YWCA and Women SV.
Thank you, Julia. Carol Ann Somersell?
So as an obstetrician gynecologist, I've had direct contact with many victims of domestic violence and done everything from helping them realize that if they're leaving, they need to turn off the location services on their phones, to giving out the resources that they need to stay away. And taking care of rape victims in the emergency room, I believe that they should not be re-traumatized by having to go to a different place for the correct collection. If we pool all our resources together, just as we have emergency people available for other services throughout the hospitals, if all the hospitals pooled our resources together, we could have a rape resource team that would be available to come to the hospital instead of making the patient go to a different hospital. And that's what I recommend for rape victims. I definitely believe it should be available at every hospital, and it would be costly. And so that's why I think we should all pool our resources to make it available at every hospital. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan Fraley?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And just to be quite honest, I hope and would love to serve on the board with the other candidates that are here tonight. Julia Miller can speak more to this than I can, but currently there is only one Democrat on the Healthcare District Board, and that is Julia Miller. This is an agency that is the healthcare district aspect and the hospital board aspect is not sufficiently differentiated, in my opinion. It's run often as the financial piece and the corporate piece is kind of running the show. If we have 3 Democratic women on that board that actually are deeply invested in care and understand on an experiential level, both personal and in our work with folks, how the actual experience and the trauma in our community and how much we need to do something, I think we could do a lot at a time where more than it's an unprecedented time, and more now than ever, we really have to tackle the mental health aspects and make sure that our community's unmet needs are getting met. So I guess my frank response is I am glad that the healthcare district is getting more attention right now. And I think that if we can elect some strong, progressive, values-driven Democrats, we can do really good things. So I 100%, I almost don't even feel like I need to say much. I 100% support that and would want to work with Julia and Carol in making that happen and give Julia more support than she has necessarily had on these issues.
Okay, and we'll have one more question from Rosie.
Thank you, candidates. So as a daughter of a mother who suffers from mental health illness and as a sexual assault survivor, and as a Latina, my question to all of you is, during COVID, we've seen a lot of the major discrepancies in equity, especially as it has to do with health and mental health illness. what will each of you do? And I don't want to talk solely equity, but what will you do to deal with these communities who have very low trust level of institutions, and to really do real outreach, not just marketing type of outreach, in order so that we don't, we can really make sure that these communities aren't falling through the crack further than they are right now.
I would love to jump. Is that okay to jump in?
Yeah, please go ahead, Megan.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm like on the edge of my seat. This is why I am running, and I know that I have allies here on this call that would work on equity in our community with me. But your question itself speaks to how desperately we need the healthcare district board to be more of a active, engaged in the community from the ground up institution, because there's huge discrepancy in healthcare. It goes without saying. And there's huge equity issues, not only in physical health, but mental health. And we need to be more connected to our community. So how to do that means us working on a policy level, but also like really collaborating with the county, school boards, community organizations, and actually being in touch with our the voters and constituents themselves, just having a deeper connection to the community so that we can understand the different needs that different populations have, because it isn't all one and the same either. So I think just even having that lens and that commitment to equity means we can fight for things like digital equity, because digital equity is right now going to be the backbone of us being able to even provide services with equal distribution. So like that's one thing I'm committed to. I've talked to some school board members about how we can collaborate with school boards in the county to make sure that all of our kids are hooked up to be able to access both school but also mental health services. So I would love to connect with anyone more about this, but that's what the Healthcare District Board is for, is actually promoting equity in our community, and we have to do that now.
Thank you, Megan. Julia, you want to go next?
Certainly. I have a little bit of a different optics on that. We do provide mental health services to anyone that's in need. We lose money with mental health, and we support the mental health division or department with our foundation, publicly raised money. But what we do with our community benefit money is we provide it to all the organizations that provide the equity that you're discussing, Rosie, which is certainly an increased need now. We support NAMBY, we support Momentum for mental health, and then of course the county and Ravenswood Institute, et cetera, et cetera. We have over 100 organizations and nonprofits that we support with your taxpayers' money. And that taxpayers' money comes from property taxes. I don't see the district as a major support of just mental health. We provide health services for all of the community. And we actually, as a district, we oversee the hospital, a $1 billion corporation, the foundation, which is doing extremely well. The community has been so generous during COVID-19. You've probably read that people are giving their money in different avenues during this pandemic. We also oversee the Silicon Valley Medical Group. So we're a busy district, but we're at the top of the pile. So we oversee actually 6 organizations, including Concern, which provides mental health and counseling to people in our district. So Rosie, I hope that answers your question, because we don't really marketing. I think that was part of your question. Who do we market to? I think rather than have you view us as a marketing agency, we just provide the care and the services. Does that answer your question?
Carol.
I think this is a wonderful question because it does speak to the inequities in healthcare. And right now, because of COVID-19, mental health it's on everybody's mind. But really, the health issue that is most important to the person is usually whatever disease they have. And as our healthcare district is taking care of the whole community, we have to focus on all the diseases within the community and the inequities for those. Now, addressing specifically the mental health aspect, I think it's very important to have a key into the providers of that mental health. For instance, right now, there is a lot of issues of social isolation between the LGBTQ members of our society who are young, and a lot of eating disorders among them. And some of the physicians who are working with that have great ideas. So to have the board also in touch with physicians, there's also our great maternal mood services program, which is it's really quality. It's a example for the whole nation. So letting our community know of all these services and also funding them appropriately with the what we've made from the hospital to make sure that it reaches all segments of our society would be key. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And that's all the time that we have. So we're going to go ahead and launch the Zoom poll. And I want to encourage everyone to stay through the end of the meeting, even though we're running a few minutes behind. We have a few Santa Clara City Council candidates and Campbell Union High School District. Basil Saleh is the last on our agenda, and you definitely don't want to leave until you've had a chance to hear him speak. So, Jeff, if you want to go ahead and, oh, there we go. So we'll leave this poll open for a minute. For Santa Clara City Council, we have candidates from 3 different districts. I'm going to go ahead and combine the Q&A. So I'll have each candidate give an opening statement. We'll do Q&A together and then have individual votes for each Santa Clara City Council district. Okay, so for the Santa Clara City Council, we're going to start with Harbir Kaur Bhatia for District 1.
Hi there. Thank you, everyone. I don't know if you can see me yet. Can you hear me and see me?
I can't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay. Hi there. Yeah, I seem to be, anyways, you don't need to hear that. Hi, everyone. My name is Harbir Bhatia, and I'm running for Santa Clara City Council District 1. And I'm very excited to be here, and thank you for the opportunity. I've been doing community service for almost 30 years, and my focus has always been about the people, the small businesses, and community. And my goal is to always leverage my community relationships and my background to ensure that we can create a thriving community for everyone. My city is going through a lot of changes, and it needs to re-envision how we get there, how we work, how we live, how we learn, how we play, and also how do we take care of our families and the cared ones. And so for me, I believe we need innovation, collaboration, and definitely much more qualifications, and somebody that can, ensure that they have an independent voice and are trustworthy. I believe I am that candidate. I want to make my city thriving and an enriched place to live where everybody feels like they belong and they can all thrive for a brighter future, not just for the some, but for the all. And my tagline is we versus me. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next we have Suds Jain for Santa Clara City Council District 5. You'll have 1 minute.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm Suds Jain, and I'm running for Santa Clara City Council District 5. I've been a member of the Santa Clara County Democratic Club for years, and I've attended many meetings at Harry's Hofbrau. With Hoi Poon, I'm co-chair of the Environmental Subcommittee. I retired from high tech 12 years ago to devote my life to combating climate change. I've refused money from all special interests. I'm a supporter of Move to Amend and the California Disclose measures. As chair of the Santa Clara Charter Review Committee, I want to push an end to the CVRI lawsuit, which has been expensive and destructive to our city. We should adopt 6 districts by ordinance. I helped defeat Measure C, which was proposing 3 districts. I've served on the Planning Commission for 5 years. I've pushed for more affordable housing, more traffic mitigation, more EV charging, more LEED buildings, TDM plans, TDM penalties. I've been endorsed by the Central Committee, League of Conservation Voters, Sierra Club, South Bay Yimby, Anna Eshu, Mike Honda, Bob Wykowski, Ash Kalra, Evan Lowe, Cindy Chavez, and Dave Cortese. Thank you.
Thank you. And then next we have Santa Clara City Council for District 6, Anthony Becker.
Hi there. Thank you, everyone. I'm a lifelong Santa Claran. I was born here in 1985. I'm a graduate of San Jose State, and I'm currently a Santa Clara Planning Commissioner. I'm a renter, I'm a millennial, and a member of the LGBTQ+ community. I'm running because I see a long broken system in Santa Clara. I'm bringing fresh out of the box type of leadership that does not come with broken promises, recycled policy, or failed governance like current leadership offers. Santa Clara is at a crossroads. Santa Clara is rapidly changing. What was there yesterday won't be there tomorrow, and what was there is suddenly there. What was never there is suddenly there. We have one foot in the future and one foot in the past. Too often this neglects in the needs of today. My community has major issues like affordable housing, traffic, a new downtown, reducing our deficits, homelessness, and social justice, as well as support for our seniors and youth. I always want to have open ears, open eyes, and an open mind. We need to change our relationships with the neighboring cities, and I have experience in the community resolving residents' quality of life issues. It's time to elect fresh leadership. It's time for a new generation to make decisions for all of our future. This is a passion for me. To my residents, your priorities are my priorities. And I thank you for your time. I've been endorsed by the Central Committee as well.
All right, thank you. We will open it up to questions. And there was a note in the comment, we do allow questions directed at specific candidates. So I have a question. I understand that CDOT ordinance was recently, I believe, was recently passed in the city of Santa Clara. And I wanted to know, what is the status of helping move that forward to ensure that we fund gender analysis of the city? And how would you help make that happen?
Should I go? I'm Suds.
Yeah, if you want to go,
okay.
that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, so I've been a member of Amnesty International since 1985. I am fully in favor of equal rights for all people, regardless of race, gender. To be honest, I don't know where the CDOT ordinance is within the city government, where it's moving, but I'm also in favor of Proposition 16. So I'm all in favor of equal rights.
I had a question for Harbir. This is Vinod. My question.
Real quick, Vinod, let's give the other candidate, this was for all the candidates. Sure. Let's give Anthony Becker, if you can go next.
Sure. I have to agree with Suds on that as well. I really don't know where the city stands on that. That's something I need to be a little more educated on. I do support Prop 16 as well. As an LGBTQ member, as a gay man, I do feel that, there needs to be a little more equity, especially when it comes to women in the job place. My mother, for many, many years, for 30 years, was working the same job as a male and making at least $20,000 less. And she did the same exact duties, same exact responsibilities, and she was paid less. And that is something that I want to see as a council member, is bringing equity to our payroll and equity to our community, as well as bringing services for families like internet equity, because that is something that's essential, I think, for everybody, that will help us get better, progressive, and more connected to each other and socially connected.
Great. And just to clarify, it did recently get voted by the City Council for approval. And I believe the next hurdle will be funding the gender analysis of the city functions. This is an issue that is also on the county party endorsement questionnaire. So I hope that you'll look into it a little bit more too after this meeting. Javier?
Hi there. So thank you. What, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So I think this is a really important question. And this does come down to how do we ensure that our programs are funded. Right now, we are having serious issues with such initiatives. I mean, recently, our city decided to do a task force on diversity and inclusion for a short period, but that doesn't turn into a long-term policy, and that's where I have my problems. And I believe the city is not doing enough to put budget behind these ideas and issues. I mean, they talk about these things, but honestly, if we don't change a council, we're not going to see any of these things come to effect. And that's why we need different leaders who understand that the gender issue still exists, that we need to create equitable working or equitable playing field. And they keep talking about, well, we're going to put this task force and we're passing this measure, but these are all short-term solutions. We have a very long way to go to make anything become actually a policy when it comes to staff, when it comes to pay, when it comes to, daycare, it comes to anything that talks about, equal rights. It's just not there at all. So I wish I could give you this exciting answer that we're there, but I can tell you, if I do get elected as a city council member, these are the kind of issues that we have to bring to the forefront and recognize when one part of our community, which is more than 50%, I think it's 51 for us, if it faces that much inequity, when we uplift that part of the community, actually the whole community succeeds. And that's the attitude I would take in most of my programming, and making sure that our contracts, making sure that our commissions consider all these aspects when they go move forward in programming and members.
Okay, thank you. Vinod, did you have a question?
Yes, my question for Harbir was regarding Levi Stadium. You mentioned in your response to our questionnaire that there should be a way to make more money from Levi Stadium. Could you elaborate, please, what your proposal is?
Hanji, that was a really good question. So right now, it's a public asset, which is not being utilized as an asset. It is this giant space taker, which could do so many more important things for us, but it's not. Why? Because of broken relationships, mistrust, and proven that we cannot get along. This is the problem between the city and between the 49ers. What we need to do is recognize that we need a win-win. When they make money, we can make money. When we make money, they can make money. But that attitude is not being taken. Right now, what's being taken is, well, you did this to us and I did this to you, so we're gonna be at a stalemate. We can have concerts. I've canvassed and talked to so many residents. They do not have an issue with an 11 o'clock curfew. So much of this, to me, is a few people speaking up without understanding the consequences of those decisions. Number two, there's more to a stadium than just concerts and football. There is a city with 65% minorities and a district with 45+% Asians who love ping pong, who love badminton. Have badminton Olympics. Have a Diwali festival inside that. Have Oktoberfest. This is the difference between people that are willing to look for opportunities versus people that are closed into my way or the highway.
Thank you, Harbir.
Okay, and if there's no other questions, we can go ahead and launch the Zoom poll.
We're mostly really exciting candidates. Oh, I can vote. Oh.
And so we are launching the polls. There's 3 polls that you'll receive here. The first is for Harbir. So just to be clear, this first poll is for Harbir Bhatia in District 1. Okay, and we can go ahead and launch the next poll for District 5. That's Jane. We're allowing a minute for each poll for voting. Okay, and next poll is for District 6, Anthony Becker. Okay, and last but not least, we have Basil Saleh for Campbell Union High School District Area 4.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
You're a little quiet for me.
Is that any better? Is this any better?
I can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to start off by acknowledging so many great Democrats here, but also the wonderful Dr. Summersill, who actually delivered my brother. You know, Black infant health, we know from statistics, is so fraught with inequity. Representation becomes a matter of life and death, and we really need public servants who don't see people of color as statistics. I'd like to tie that back into my platform and my reasons for running. Currently, I work at the county supervisor's office, where I bring people from all walks of life together and advocate for them on wide-ranging issues. I am running for this board seat because I know that students succeed academically when we meet their needs and elevate their voices in a way that's representative of them. Our district's LCAP documents that students with disabilities and students who identify as African American English learners achieve far lower academic outcomes, disproportionate suspensions, and lower rates of college and career preparation than their peers. These red flags have persisted for years, marking the district out to receive differentiated assistance. I see my time is there. We want to turn that around.
I'm going to go ahead and ask you, what would you have said in your opening statement if you were given more time?
Thank you. The pandemic that we're going through has exacerbated these disparities and pushed them to the front of public consciousness, but they have been issues since I was a student, especially in the case of one of my good friends who was sent to prison. So I am laser focused on how our schools not only act as systems of education, but as social safety nets as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle.
This isn't the greatest question in the world, but did you run for school board a couple years ago too? I feel like I saw you at a forum a couple of years ago. Am I mistaken about that?
No, you're not. I did run for the school board in 2018. It was at large. This is the first year where we have trustee areas.
Oh, great. And so I guess my question is, what did you learn from your first race that you are doing differently, or what issues did you learn about in the interim between the first race and the second race that you feel have made you better prepared now to serve?
Totally. Well, working for the county, I get this beautiful sort of bird's eye view of not only what's happening within the silo of the schools, but what's happening in our other public institutions and agencies, how they interact, sometimes positively, sometimes negatively, and how programs such as the Mayor's Gang Prevention Task Force have sort of utterly failed to uplift youth in certain scenarios. So I would like to use the perspective that I've gathered to sort of organize around the schools, because they're such an important focal point for our community. I've also sort of learned, personally speaking, that, you know, best sort of way to address phobias in our community is to put forth a positive vision, rally folks around that, and really just sort of try to focus on those issues as much as possible and tune everything else out.
Rosie put in the chat that she has a question. I don't know.
Yeah, did you get that, Jenny? I wanted to ask a question. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, go ahead, Rosie.
Yeah. So thank you for being here. Thank you for running again. So this is a very serious time, and this is the perfect storm that the Charter Association of California was waiting to come through, because they really, really were waiting for this opportunity to really dismantle school districts. How are you, my question isn't how are you going to, I know how your stand on is on that, but my question is, how are you going to effectively work on some of your fellow board members who really feel that, you know, charter schools is the best thing next to a popsicle?
That's a great question. And I think that I would like to start that by setting some very specific goals within a 2-year timeline to a 4-year timeline. I'm particularly talking about integrated classrooms, integrating special needs classes and the rest of our on-level classes. And the existence of charter-dominated districts and public districts perpetuates that segregation, especially because resources aren't evenly distributed across our K through 8s. Now, if we're able to do some goal setting there on stuff that, you know, I very much hope to be able to mobilize our parent community and our special education teacher community around, then I think we can be leaders in this regard. And I also want to say that another part of challenging the power of charters is looking at working with the new seats that have flipped in our feeder districts. Cambrian School District, for example, now has Don Rocha on the school board, as well as one of my former teachers, Janet Gillis, who's absolutely fantastic. But they will be able to bring a new perspective to the district that's been owned by charter interests historically. I'm interested in seeing, you know, how can we set these goals for equity and work across the levels of school districts.
All right, great. And that's all the time that we have. So we're going to go ahead and launch the final poll. All right, so that concludes the endorsements for this evening. I appreciate everyone for coming out and joining us, and for all of the candidates who participated, filling out both the questionnaire and taking the time for this Q&A. We do have two, and we will be announcing the results as soon as we have a chance to verify the membership status of those who voted, so within the next 24 hours. We have 2 more endorsement meetings. The next one will be this Wednesday, and the last one will be the following Monday. So I hope to see you all there. They're also going to be at 7 p.m. by Zoom, so please look for the email. And with that, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.